Join me as I talk with people who express their creativity in ways that can inspire the rest of us to recognize our own creativity. In this episode with Lecco Morris, we talk about what happens when a piece of music or a poem or a piece of art expresses something that we felt but we've never had words for. And that helps us feel both recognized and seen. Hello, welcome to Creativity Conversations. And today I get to speak with Lecco Morris. Hey there.
Hi, Nina. Nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So I think Lecco has some very interesting ideas about creativity in his world of being a songwriter, pianist, poet. So let me just start out by asking you this question. What inspires you?
What inspires me? Uh, hmm, Frustration. I find that's very inspiring. Like, what do you want to hear that you haven't heard or are not hearing? What do you want to read that you haven't read but want to read? I find other people and other works inspiring. I have a kind of reverse relationship to inspiration or to the blank page than a lot of people, or
Well,
rather
tell
a
me
lot of
about that.
yeah. I can sit down and I can continuously write or continuously play without a roadmap, and I've always been able to do that. Sort of like the faucet's always on, so that the trick and is um, finding a correct container to just sort of like grab yourself a glass and then be like, here is the glass of this. This is one idea, this one thing. So, but I simply don't identify at all with it being difficult to originate ideas. I identify a great deal with it being difficult to choose how to package a continuous flow
Well,
into
actually,
something.
excuse me for interrupting, that leads me to a question for you, which is, as a songwriter, poet, are those really different activities or are they expressions of the same thing?
Um, Depends on how deeply you want to think about or how integrated you want to think about the creative act. To me, they don't. The burning desires that like start them are a little bit different. I find usually when I feel like I need to write something, um there is a specific idea that I am trying to push towards. And with music, it has a, I think, a little bit more of a playful origination point, insofar
Mhm.
as you sit down. My favorite way to approach the piano is to sit down and play one note and then just kind of let my brain psyche sort of circle around. Is that the top of a major seventh chord? Is that the beginning of a repeated riff? Is that, what is that? And then kind of just boom, let that play. Whereas when I'm trying to write a poem, I don't start with the word and kind of stare at it and think about what it inspires. There's been something already originating with it that wants. So there are distinctions, at least in my personal experience, with how to write. And I also, there's another dimension. Much of my poetry work, I have created collections and done the traditional publishing and journal route, but much of it was working as a typewriter street poet, getting a completely random prompt. That prompt could be as, heavy as, I mean, I'm going to use actual examples, as heavy as, 5 days ago I got an abortion. Can you write a poem that is the first birthday of my aborted baby?
Oh,
All the way to someone going, "You're not making that up on the spot. I don't believe you. Try this," and opens up their phone and they choose five words on a random Oxford English Dictionary word generator and say, "Use those." So, I mean, it runs the full gamut. So, that's a different, yet another different packaging of creativity and impulse. But when I'm writing poetry for myself, um, uh, there's a real urge, and that's less common with music. With music, there's like a desire for play that like turns into something.
so the two are somewhat different then. I mean, I'm sure it's a little bit more complicated than I may be making it out to me, but you're working in when you're composing, you're working with your partner, correct? Maybe you could talk a little bit about that and how that
Sure.
works together
um
for you both.
well, originally I was a kind of uh, straight ahead classical composer, who worked with some texts, but pre-existing texts that I would set. But the bulk of my songwriting work for many years now, I think 6 years now, has been in collaboration with an extraordinary lyricist and very close friend of mine, Justin K. Rivers, who is inordinately prolific in many dimensions. I mean, like a true one and done polymath sort of gentleman. But what he delivers, going back to like the container for the constant flow concept, what he delivers to me is like a perfect cup of lyrics. Like it is so clear. It is so clear, the size and dimension and what flavor needs to be inside that particular that particular stein or mug or shot glass of a thing. It's so clear, that it's been a great creative relief to me
Mm.
to have this partnership where I actually don't have to do the incredibly difficult work of creating the container. It's presented to me, and my job becomes, ooh, okay, so how do I fill it? And that's been inordinately, I would just call it successful. We have
Mm.
many records out there in the world. We've had we've done that through all manner of means of supporting those records, and I think the work is tremendous, and I think that's because of this relationship between him creating this perfect container and that being kind of just the ticket for how I work musically.
So the container is the format of the lyrics?
Yeah, it's the psychic content of what's being
Okay.
expressed. It's this particular, like, is he doing it in quatrains? Is he doing it in some trochaic meter? Is there, how? So there are all these indications that I feel like, let's say, a line limps in a particular way. If you read it as poetry, it loses a pre-established cadence. For
Hmm.
instance,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, you can feel the indication to respond to that musically. Now, in a very extreme case of this, there's a compositional term of art called Mickey Mousing, which is kind of best exemplified. A lot of this is in Fantasia. There's a lot of Mickey Mousing in the way that you cut the visuals to the classical pieces in Disney's Fantasia. But like, when you watch someone like creep up the steps and you hear the strings go bop, 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 bop,
Mm.
bop, bop. I try not to delve in, I try not to be that explicit with it, but there are all these indications of how to best animate his material. And um, he creates entirely cohesive universes per song, and they're
Mm.
threaded on a record. But I think of them like, I think of the songs of our records as islands in an archipelago, where the archipelago might share flora and fauna and weather system, but each island is inordinately unique.
Hmm.
Um, uh, yeah, I have no idea if I answered your question, but yeah.
I liked it.
Okay.
So the other day I mentioned to you that I had watched the video that's on YouTube, the making of We the Nighthawk
Hmm.
or Hawk, excuse me. Excuse me. I know you had done that a few years ago, but talk to me about the kind of music that the two of you really like to put together.
Mm.
The video that I saw was gorgeous, and
Mm.
it really acknowledged all of the incredible attention to detail that everyone that was involved with that project did and focused on.
Yeah, um, there are lots of things to answer there. Uh, I want to just jump on the thing that you said at the end, which I've really learned through the process of collaboration, not only with Justin, as a lyricist, but we've worked with the late Joel Moss, who was an
Mm.
extraordinary and celebrated and revered and very magic touched producer,
Mhm.
and worked and collaborated a lot with Dylan Perillo, the bassist and arranger and songwriter, who's a very good friend and who understands what we're going for and can help us with personnel and can help us understand the arrangement. And so I just want to highlight a thing that you said, which is, we've gotten really good as a bunch of collaborators at like just ensuring everyone is in their genius lane, and that like no one is doing the thing that they don't like to do or not good at. And so if you get a project together which is collaborative, um, and you pay really close attention to the skill sets and interests of the people involved, everyone can get out of everyone's way and
Mhm.
everyone can go 1,000 miles per hour if you approach the project that way. And I think that's very much true of like what Justin and I have been working towards. So you asked about what music we like to write. Um, I love analog instruments. I um, have extremely little technological acumen or interest. I find acumen and interest are almost the same thing, really. And I love recording live. And so the worlds that we're building are all very carefully staffed with personnel. I like and I think that's one of the skills I bring to bear in our collaboration, which is I can hear someone on a drum set and understand their assets and liabilities,
Mhm.
or vocally what their assets and liabilities are, and building out the personnel of live recordings is to me like just like delightful, like mixing and matching of skill sets and sounds. And so the music that we like to make, it harkens back, I think, to an era of collaboration that's very different than the way a lot of music is produced
Yeah.
these days. where there's a heavy reliance on technology, and
Mm.
there is and or it's sort of like, you know, pop music today. It's wild. I've just spoken to people about it, where the drum sound on a particular recording, it's like two people take credit for like the bass drum sound, and it's all gets bandied around to various producers, and then they argue like sharks over a meal of what percentage was their contribution. And it's like, we own everything that we made. I'm all the music. I attribute the arrangement and orchestration with whatever support that I have. But there's not this disembodied process. You're making the whole thing, and like that's a really big part of what I love theatrically, what I love musically, what I love in writing is the total corpus of the thing. To For it not to be made piecemeal. For That's why I struggle to work in film. You're doing like a little tiny piece of a big picture, and I like to work with people that want to participate fully in like the big picture together. And I think that maybe comes from a theater background. Like,
Mm.
every single night you
Right.
make from whole cloth together the experience that is being perceived live.
Hmm.
And to me,
Hmm.
that's the special sauce.
I love what you're saying. I want to circle back to a phrase that you used, building worlds. And I talk to me a little bit more about that because I think from what you've been sharing so far that idea of building a world is like the ultimate form of creativity because you're paying attention to so many details and you're selecting who's going to be a part of that collaboration, and everybody contributes something that ends up being an experience that nobody's ever had before in that particular way.
Yeah, I kind of feel that all great art that I care about does that.
Mm.
If you're listening to, you know, if you're listening to a particular Bill Evans Vanguard recording, or something like that, nothing could sound like that.
Hmm.
If you're if you're checking out, Picasso's Blue Period, nothing can feel like that. Um, uh, yeah, I mean, I don't often like create thinking about this objective, but I have thought about this before, and I think that um, when you perceive a piece of art that moves you, when the hair on the back of your neck goes up, um, that that feeling, that particular thrill, is simultaneously not feeling alone in the universe, like something
Hmm.
that you felt inside of you that has never been excavated before. All of a sudden, you can literally the waves and frequencies of the air are making you feel that. It's sort of like bananas, really. Or like, when you read a line of poetry and you feel like stripped naked for a second.
Hmm.
um and I think that only really happens when you've created uh a, a universe that you can enter, that has its own language and rules, so that it can create the possibility for that. That doesn't just happen. You have to
It's work.
create the container. Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to sort of like go somewhere. And like it's travel. I mean, it's traveling. It's a little interdimensional, and And I know that sounds like, I mean, that does sound
No,
a little wonky,
no,
but
not to me.
that is what it's doing. Um, uh, yeah.
So well, let me ask you this. What have you learned about the creative process that you didn't know 20 years ago or even 10 years ago?
Mm. You mean specifically through Morris and Rivers, my collaboration with Justin doing the songwriting work, or just in general?
In however you'd like to answer it.
Mm. Uh, well, a little bit of a preface, which is I've been making things my whole life, so there's not like I feel I feel often when asked about an artistic or creative process, it always takes me a second to like understand the positionality of the question, because it wasn't like I, you know, left a career in finance to do.
Right, right.
I've always been making things. So that being said, um, I think I have hmm, well, I've certainly learned a great deal. And I talked a little bit about what I've learned through working with the sort of creative, both Justin in particular, and the creative
Hmm.
team behind so many of our records. Um, I think that I've softened a good bit on perhaps a judgmental nature towards certain types of art, and I think that I've arrived at a place, whatever arrived means, but where like good is good, and it doesn't have to be like I think I had a real predilection towards complexity,
Hmm.
um, complexity in music, complexity in idea in writing that I've just really softened towards. Like if it's good,
Hmm.
it's good. Like if you're feeling it, you're feeling it. And um
It's a good metric.
yeah, and so in that way, you know, snobbery is a very um, double-edged sword, because like you need
Hmm.
discernment in order to make choices artistically. It's required of you, and you need extreme discernment to make extremely compelling choices. And at the same time, you don't have to apply a particular rubric, or a particular rigor necessarily to everything that you're experiencing. Um, so uh, I think that softening that I'm describing is definitely a continuous process, and something that has unfolded as I've gotten
Hmm.
older and experienced more.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I have this theory that making things changes you. And if you've always been making things since you were a wee babe, you may not have noticed it so much in yourself. But I think, and I'd like to know what you think, that it changes the way you see the world, and it changes the way you see the world over time.
Hmm. What do you mean over time? Like, just tell me a little bit more about.
Well, maybe in the process of creating and the repetition of the creative act, whether it's poetry or songwriting, whatever the form is in and of itself, how how you see the world, for me anyway, I find that I can bring a different presence to that act. Whereas maybe it's evolutionary, maybe it's just a process of repetition or repurposing or reorganization, something like that. But I think that it allows us to see the world with fresher eyes than someone who maybe doesn't have the creative bug. Does that make sense?
Um, yeah, it makes sense. I want to answer it in a couple different ways. One
Yeah.
is I've noticed the reverse. I've noticed when I have not been making or producing something that
Mm-hmm.
there's this strange stultification that I am very much aware of. Um, uh, so I'll say that on the front end. The other the other thing that I've always sort of struggled with how people talk about it is I think we need to like demystify this idea of the creative act. Like the people who I love, regardless their profession or vocation, um, are those that um, creatively synergize what occurs in their five senses around them. They're people
Mm-hmm.
who take an input and then they pull from all these interesting places within themselves and they have an output that I go, wow, I never would have thought to say that then. Or really, we're we're all gonna get in this car and go there now because of that? Or whatever. I mean, to use as a goofy example. But um I think in the and now I'm gonna sound a little wonky, but like in the siloification of people and their work and their economic output. We have artists over here, and we use grants to support artists or don't.
Used to.
But like, but this strange like bifurcating of what people are. It's like everyone has an artistic, creative
Mm-hmm.
capacity, and they probably experience it in their given life. Let's say a person has no traditional artistic output.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they can remember a period in their life that felt the most vivacious, the most alive, the most
Mm-hmm.
energized, the most connected. And like I it's not I bet you money. I promise you that that is the period of their life when they were creatively synergizing what was around them, and they were
Mm-hmm.
probably doing it without thinking of it as a creative act because like we've like lost this idea that everyone is creative. And this is not an indictment of you and the existence of this podcast, but like they're not podcasts talking about create the creative drive, in part because there's this like psychic distance between
Yeah.
the idea that we all contain everything, but we do. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm the point there isn't to say a goofy philosophical thing. The point is to say like you can feel those creative people around you, whether or not they're painting a picture, whether or not they're doing an expressly artistic thing.
Yeah.
Um, Creativity is a is a way of being, and if someone chooses to pour that into um a specific artistic practice, particularly over time, um fruits will emerge from that. I don't believe in talent in the way people talk about it. It's just it's that dual thing of acumen emerging from interest plus time. Uh,
That's a great equation.
yeah. Um,
Well, I think to me, that's why having these kinds of conversations is important because I'm totally with you. Everybody's creative. We all know what kids that were 4 and 5 did with their pencils and paints and music and, toy pianos and all of that. And then by the time they got to be 8 or 9, it's been squashed out of them.
Mm.
But I think the more that we have conversations about creativity, it points to that very fact that you're making, is that everybody's got it. It is a kind of an aliveness, an energy, and a connection to life that is a little quirky and
Sure.
it's delightful.
I'll contribute another equation to this, and I love this thought. I have lingered on this thought a lot. I probably should know more about the equation that I'm going to say, but uh, someone uh, created an equation, and it got used in machine learning. It got used in philosophy. It got used in all these different applications, but it was basically an equation. Uh, to describe the operant conditions of intelligence itself. And it's F equals something. I'm forgetting the actual mathematical um,
Yes. It-
terminology, but the English transliteration of the math is intelligence is the limiting of obstacles to future opportunities.
Say that one again.
Intelligence is the limiting of obstacles to future opportunities. And I think this was originally used to like program Pong or something. No, really. I think if memory serves, it's something like that. But I love this. I love this idea of intelligence being an ensuring an an assurance of a large vista of potential opportunities in the future. And to me, like, if it can program Pong like that, like that's like a generative creative act.
Hmm.
Um, and that's a way that I really love to think about intelligence, and it's a
Hmm.
way that I notice um, when I am compelled towards someone, that is sort of what's happening
Yeah.
in them. Um, yeah.
It's funny, you're making me think of a quote that I think is attributable to Einstein, which is that creativity is intelligence having fun. And if
Mhm.
fun doesn't remove obstacles, I don't know what does.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. Um, mhm. yeah, Einstein, it's funny, we created such a narrative around the man that I don't think he would he would agree with so much of it. He really was a tinkerer
Yeah.
an extraordinarily uh creative and not very dogmatic guy. Just
Yeah.
constantly dreaming, really,
Yeah.
with his violin on a
And
boat.
his naps.
Yeah, yeah.
So is there ever a point in the variety of things that you do artistically where you feel you are that you need to keep working on the piece or that you're starting to interfere with it? Do you know what I
Are you
mean?
asking like
Yeah, when you're
do I
making
do I
something,
struggle like when the piece is done? Is that what you mean?
in the process of it, let's say you're working on a poem, just as an example, and you're struggling with the right languaging for it, and is there a point at which you say, I'm going to keep my language clean here. I'm messing up with this too much. I have to step away from it, let it breathe, give it its own space. Or do you feel this need to keep tinkering until
Mhm.
the craft has brought the words into exactly the lane that you want them to be in? It was a long question, but
Yeah, I know a lot of people that ascribe to this, the work is never done, really. Someone just calls it quits. I know a lot of people I respect and admire a great deal who um who believe that and who practice that. And that's not me, for better or worse. Uh my framework is like, oh, this is working or this is not working. And when
So
it's
you
not
go for
working,
the feeling of it.
yeah, if it's not working, I just completely abandon it. And
Mm.
maybe I'll bring it out and look at it again. But there's it's a very interesting process with Justin in particular because he also is a musician. He doesn't have the same toolkit. He comes from a more of a singer songwriter, bandolier with a guitar sort of tradition.
Hmm.
Um, but he has in his head not only what is this song about, but even originally, actually, there's a very funny thing that happened early on in our collaboration. I'm not particularly good at technology, and he's sharing all these things and these Google Docs and all this Dropbox and all this stuff, and I had written 20 songs. We were workshopping the record, and at one point he asked me, he's like, "Oh, it's interesting that you wrote this one little bit that was kind of similar to what I wrote and shared with you." And I said, "I'm sorry, what?" And he's like, "Well, my field recordings of the songs that I sent along with the lyrics that were like the songs that I wrote, that." And I'm like, "Come again?" And he had been actually sending lyrics and music to me, and I had been printing the lyrics and just writing the song without even knowing the amount of preconceived musical thought. And so the way that I mean, it's a kind of extremely simple process, which is like, I'll print out his lyrics, I'll put them in front of the piano. If they don't like speak to me, I'll look at the next set of lyrics until I'm like, ooh, I'm feeling G flat minor, and then holding, or whatever the the inkling is, or the starting point. And I'll record a verse chorus, or some bit of musical material, text it to him, just a voice memo, text it to him, and ask him, like, am I on it? Like, is this the thing? And it's either like thumbs up or like, I really was imagining this much darker. I think this is actually a confessional, and I'm hearing way too much pastoral something or other in this. And I'll go like, and I'll tinker with it a bit to see if it's a quick fix. But we have like arrived at tunes where we've very occasionally arrived at a tune where I wrote the whole thing, and I I think it sings the thing that it sang, and he doesn't, or vice versa has also happened. It's very rare. Mostly we're in alignment about what's like the real marriage between the two, and are they jiving. But it is interesting when there's one tune in particular, I'm like, I nailed that one, like, why aren't we recording that one? And he's like, it wasn't quite right. And well, I'm sure we're going to come back to it in the scope of time that tune will get made. And I would say the vast majority of the time we're on the same page about the marriage of music and words and narrative. And sometimes it's a little bit shocking when we're not. And the way our process has always worked, is I print out the lyrics, put them on the piano. If they speak to me, I immediately start writing. Um, and I'll send him a little bit of musical material. It could be a verse chorus, it could be just a verse, it could be a bridge, it could be some bit of musical material. And I just send him the voice memo of me playing and singing it along. And he kind of goes like, yep, that's it. Or like, oh, I like most of it, but like that transition really needs to be doing this work. What do you have to do to make it do this work? And very occasionally we're on different tangents of our interpretation. Um, uh, but we're not writing to a prompt other than our own. So usually I
Mm.
just let um what speaks to me turn into a tune. I have 100, more than 100 of his lyrics printed out that um I've not yet notated and not yet made into a full song. Um and I bring them out when I'm feeling, maybe I'll take another stab at that one. Like, what wasn't I hearing? And
Mhm.
occasionally it'll be shocking to me. Like, why did I not? There was this particular tune called Murder Mystery that I had put in front of my piano multiple times, and like somehow it didn't leap off the page. And then one time I put it off the page, and the song wrote its. I mean, just completely wrote itself as quickly as anything. And that happens quite a bit. Like, I find his language to be inviting, and
Mhm.
not inviting in a way that it's not difficult to leap in and then just get carried away. um I would say most songs I write the structure of the song. Of course, there's arrangement, and then when you're bringing in other players, there's like all sorts of other musical work that happens.
Mm.
But like most songs, I write in under an hour. Um, from looking at the music to going like, "Oh," to working on it.
Here it comes.
Yeah, yeah,
So I have two questions as we come to a close on this conversation. Hopefully, we'll have more.
yeah. Hmm.
What would you like people to know about being creative, about letting yourself just play with ideas and your awareness of what's in front of you?
There are no rules. There are no mistakes. The stakes are only what you create for yourself. I mean, there's just like just the barriers to it. I find it very frustrating when other people talk about like, oh, I wish I could blah, and they talk about some artistic thing, or like the most common one, and I get this when I'm performing publicly. I have a piano trio that I play out pretty routinely in New York. Um, Almost every show, someone will say, "Wow, incredible! You guys sound great." I, you know, I took piano lessons when I was a kid, but I gave it up, and I wish I hadn't, or I wasn't very good, so I wish, and some sort of version, and I just kind of sit there like blinking, like, well, if you just sat down at the piano and kept on playing because you said you wanted to do it, you would discover something. There's just not, it's not, evol there's a lot of stuff that's difficult about society. Choosing to just make some art is not the hard one. Like, you just
Do
start
it.
doing it.
Just do it.
It's not. I mean, as much as I hate the corporatization of that perfect phrase, Nike's onto something.
Yeah,
You know,
I know it.
actually, a great story about Nike. I think about this one a lot. Do you know the Nike swoop?
Yes.
So they hired a particular graphic designer, and they went through like something like 40 or 50 iterations of his final designs, and they rejected all of them. Doesn't convey speed enough, doesn't convey. And he got extremely frustrated, and he took whatever was his writing utensil, he chucked it at the page, and it made the bottom of the swoop. He connected the swoop, the top parts that wasn't filled in, and said, I give up, give me $45. And I'm sure I'm getting some part of this wrong, but they handed him a money without any residuals, and this sad graphic designer left, and then Nike. And one of the most recognizable swoops ever, but
Yeah.
or logos ever. Just in the humor of talking about creativity, that's one for
Yeah.
the books.
Yeah. That's
Had
a
you
good
you
one.
you you were nodding along. You'd heard that one before?
I get I hadn't heard that story, but I get it. You just
Yeah, yeah.
finally stop trying and the
Hmm.
thing emerges.
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah.
So, my last question to you
Hmm.
is where can people find you?
Um,
If
well, I'll
they're,
say this very specifically, which is uh Morris and Rivers, Justin and I, we want to work with vocalists that aren't necessarily singer-songwriters, but they want their own work. So
Mhm,
if you listen to any of our records and you go, "Ooh, I want that," I what would it take for there to be a record for me? Um, Reach out to me. So I will include contact information for certain. But our I think of every project as a business card to future vocalists who want a kind of world building thing that is not so easily or often done these days.
mhm, mhm.
So uh, I would say reach out to me directly.
Okay, and how do they
Yeah,
do that?
my email, my phone, um, uh, Lecco Motion, like locomotion, Lecco Motion at gmail.com. If you listen to our work and love it, definitely check us out there. And
And you're on
uh,
YouTube.
and we're on YouTube, and we're recently remounting an Instagram, Morris and
Mhm.
Rivers.
Nice.
So go check us out there.
Great.
Uh, yeah, thank you for that, Nina.
Thank you. And thank you for being here because your perspective is definitely unique and delightful.
Thank you. This is really fun. I
All right.
appreciate you.
Thank you. And for those of you who are listening or watching, thank you for being with us and stay tuned for the next episode. So, bye for now.
Pleasure, Nina. Bye bye.